district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be trading. And I always be trading. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
It's been a slow slog.
Yeah, we've got a few guys that go the full 4 hours pretty much every time. But,
it's wonderful, right?
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's such a weird league. It's super fun. I like it. I don't know if you know, I'm in the league where the guy drafted McCall Hardman in the first round and Steven Sims in the second.
Yes.
That's my division.
That seems like questionable process, but
yeah.
I mean, you get points for returns, but like, I mean, that's you're missing so much value there in the first. Like, he took him at 1-6 or 1-7. Like, you're passing on. I don't know.
Yeah.
If for some reason he doesn't end up doing returns, then that's your whole draft.
In a league that's promoting touchbacks, like, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I like both of those picks, but not there.
Right.
No.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I must have missed the memo on the return.
Oh, so that's my division, by the way. Second round, Hardman.
Yeah, mine was the first round.
Well, they took him in the first. Holy.
Yeah, he took him at 1-7, and then he took Sims on the way back. Like, those were his first two picks.
Yeah, it's a little much, a little heavy on that. Pretty much.
I mean, it's fine with the rest of us. It's better players. But...
I didn't even see that about the return yardage.
Oh yeah, you need to. Yeah, you get points for that.
Oh, well, I guess I won't get too many. I don't think I've drafted anybody who's a returner yet.
I took Lockett probably around early, but I would have taken him anyway at some point.
Right.
So he's the only guy I have that really fits that.
Yep, that makes sense.
I appreciate the guests tonight. We've got a couple special guests as usual. I mean, this week we're going to focus on quarterbacks. We've been looking at positions. We've had tight ends. We've done receivers. Looking at one of our guests' recent articles, I kind of wish I had timed it a little better, but it was hard to kind of guess where she was going with them. But she's put out some great material on a couple of those positions that we've talked about. But we'll focus on quarterbacks tonight. I call them the captains of the NFL. Guys we're buying, selling, either avoiding or targeting when we're doing our drafts, whether it's best ball, redraft. I know, Jen, that's more your specialty with regards to doing redraft, and just talk about our overall strategy on the position. Dan, again, I'm still getting used to this transition from audio to visual because I'm used to kind of bringing you in and surprising people with the guests, but I mean, they're all on the screen. So I'm just going to go get give a quick intro to them. I mean, everybody knows you, dude. You're the overhyped sleeper, Mr.
Right.
Dan Williamson, the money man. Dan, always a pleasure with you on the weekly, but we bring in, like I said, two special guests. You know her from 4 for 4. Jennifer Eakins. First, I want to apologize. I sent out a tweet and totally missed the S on your name, so I want to apologize for that. But we appreciate you coming on to the GOAT District.
And now you get to make another apology, JD, because it's Akins, not Eakins.
Oh my God, I'm on a roll, man. I'm telling you, I have no.
What do you mean? Because he just pronounced it wrong?
I'm the captain now.
Yeah, that's what I need. The good news is I moved the draft board. So Jennifer, I apologize twice now, but welcome to the GOAT District.
It's all good. Like I said earlier, last name, everyone butchers it. It's all good. And I am happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I feel it more because I have a simpler last name and people still butcher it. And that's why when I saw your message, I was like, oh, I'm such an ass, because this is exactly what I deal with on a regular basis. So I appreciate you being cool about it. And like I said, we appreciate you joining us. Our other guest, I mean, you guys know him. He's on here on the regular, Mr. Jordan McNamara. You see him out there in Football Guys.
Yeah, UTH Dynasty, and then I'm doing the Analytics Dynasty stuff. So
thank you, sir. So we appreciate you coming back, Jordan. What I'm thinking of doing is let's get right into the goodness. And a bit later on, I'm going to come back to all the good work that you two have been putting out there in Fantasyland. So, guys, let's jump right into the goodness. Like I said, we're talking quarterbacks. Jennifer, I know your specialty, like I said earlier, is on 4for4. I'm a little newer to the site, but I'm not as new to your work because you put out a lot of work on that site. And looking at the position, whether it's redraft, whether it's best ball, what's your general approach when you're looking at the quarterback position, maybe comparing it to the other positions that we deal with in fantasy?
I'm of the later round ilk when it comes to redraft and best ball. And like I told you, I don't do Dynasty. You can shame me all you want. It's a choice. I don't do it. But anyway, so, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely of the later round. I mean, obviously, if one of the top guys happens to fall, and it fits in with what I have going on, of course I'm going to take him. But I'm definitely not the person that's going to grab a Mahomes or a Jackson in the first couple rounds. I just feel like there's way too much value up on top of the board compared to what's down below. So that's I'm definitely not like a super weight like to the garbage pail at the bottom, but I definitely will wait to the middle of the pack in the quarterback tiers.
Okay. And is that, do you do a lot of best balls, Jennifer?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. So for both redraft and best ball, I mean, obviously best ball, I may go a little earlier because you want to grab more than one. Whereas redraft, of course, you usually only take one or maybe a second, if whatever. But but either way, I'm definitely not in the first year. Now, as far as this season, I've taken a few Dak Prescott shares here and there when the feeling strikes me. But I'm not going to go out of my way to grab him early like some have been.
It's funny you say that because I don't normally go early quarterback, especially redraft for best balls, because I just find that the value you're passing on is so much. But I literally just in the DWG, I actually took Dak. I'll have to pull up what round. I don't want my screen to lose my screen again. But it's funny because I do find out of that top tier, he's kind of the last guy that sometimes falls a bit more. People might be worried about what's going on in Dallas or his contract situation or whatever it is. But I mean, the firepower that offense has, he's definitely looking to have a good season, and he's always kind of on a prove it, situation, right, with the contract. So that's a little added cheddar to it.
No, absolutely. And I have to say, like, I'm not opposed to, Dak. Dak in a stack is really nice, like with Gallup and Jarwin. So I will do that if it's right. But there's some people that are grabbing Dak like in the fourth, and I just can't do it. So, if he falls to the right spot, I'll do it. But I'm not going to, reach for him. But like I said, the stacking is nice.
Jennifer spitting the stacks, getting on the side. Hashtag always be stacking.
Always.
So Jordan, man, how about you, brother? I know. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think most of us play pretty much, whether it's dabble or specialize, we've played, the different platforms or formats when it comes to fantasy. So maybe give an idea are there any differences when you play the different formats, and what is your general approach to the quarterback position?
Yeah, so I don't play a ton of best ball. I play like maybe a redraft league or two a year. It's more Dynasty for me, but I am getting more into. I'm doing more redraft writing, so I'm looking more and more. I think it's a balance, right? Like you can play Dynasty long term, but at the same time, I think you need to have, and the more and more I do this, you need to have a this year vision in terms of your team. So I'm not necessarily getting into a ton of redrafts or best balls or anything like that. I am focusing more and more on the in season than I did in past years. So that's, I think, for me this year. It depends how early I want to go, so I've been looking at some team builds and stuff like that. For me, the ultimate combination of floor, ceiling, and price this year is Dak Prescott. And he's my number 2 in Dynasty ahead of Lamar Jackson. Just the floor that he presents with the multiple top 6 finishes, with the offense. I mean, they're losing Jason Witten, which is an addition by subtraction based on his efficiency per target last year. And they're going to replace him. His targets likely will go either towards Blake Jarwin or CeeDee Lamb. And I mean, that's just turbocharging an offense that was the best offense in football last year, that because they didn't score a huge touchdown rate, they don't get a ton of credit for. But when you know, when you're looking for teams to break out and possibly finish as QB1, right, that's kind of what you want, which is a team that was the best offense in football last year without a huge touchdown rate. Because the thing that ultimately gets you to being a quarterback one is a huge touchdown rate. So I think the floor on him's fantastic. I think the ceiling on him is fantastic, and I think the price is really good. The problem is whether you want to pay that early for a quarterback. But if I was going to take a quarterback early, he would be the pick because of that combination.
Dan, one of my new obsessions with this show is getting a nice mix of guests, and this is exactly why Jordan and Jennifer are on tonight, because they're coming from two different spectrums, right? And that's kind of what I like. Two different perspectives. Sorry, is what I meant. What about you, Dan? I know we are similar in ways that we build rosters, but we also put huge volumes in. So give the Fantasyland a refresher or a reminder, if you've made adjustments, how you approach the quarterback position.
Yeah, so quarterback for me, I mean, especially in best ball and redraft, it's going to be that position that I kind of look to take when there's no big value presenting itself at other positions. I tend to prioritize the other positions, and whenever I get to quarterback is when I get to quarterback. But every now and then, you will see a Dak or a Kyler or somebody like that fall, and it's definitely worth taking them then. But I'm generally not going to take that early quarterback in best ball and redraft. And then in Dynasty, I'm a little bit more inclined to, I want to at least grab a good, solid quarterback, somebody I believe in, who I believe has, good 2-3 years at least in their future. My time horizon doesn't have to be really long, because if you're talking one quarterback league, then, it's real easy to come up with rookie quarterbacks and pull them under your team. I was able to pull in Mahomes that way on a couple teams, and, you can just always, if you're finding yourself lacking at quarterback in a one quarterback league, you can usually find a way to upgrade pretty easily and almost for free. But in the best balls, I'll tend to go to the later round quarterbacks, just because you can kind of cobble together or Frankenstein together a really good quarterback by using 2 or 3 late round options rather than spending that early pick. So I find in best ball, I almost always take the later option.
Yeah, same as I mentioned earlier with best balls. I guess with Superflex, I'm more willing to take those higher end guys like the Lamars and the Mahomes. It's not like I'm investing huge into them. I've got a share or two of each of them. And then for me, Dynasty, I'm often at the quarterback position approaching it almost in a redraft way, because I consider a lot of my teams contenders, and that's how I approach the game. Whether I'm in a rebuild, I mean, my rebuilds are very quick. I'm not looking 2-3 years down the road. I want to compete every year. So I don't mind grabbing those, especially in one QB, like those Breeze, Brady, guys that people are kind of devaluing in Dynasty because they're older. For me, similar to tight end, these guys play, as we see now, guys in their mid 40s almost, chucking the ball around. So if you can balance that out by getting one of those guys, doing what Dan just talked about. I'm thinking about my OG GOAT roster. I've lost 2 years in a row in the finals. I've got Breeze as one of my quarterbacks who I brought in for not much to pair him up, stack him. Shout out to Jennifer with Michael Thomas. And then I have Wentz. And then I just drafted Herbert in this year's rookie draft, like you said, Dan, for nothing. I think it was like 3rd round or something, and I put him on my taxi. So it's super easy. Once I'm done with Breeze, whether that's a year or 2, it's easy to kind of replace that in a 1 QB. So I'm more willing to do that there. In the super flex, I want more of a balance, like Jordan talked about, with regards to having a nice mixture of your young stud, young up and comer, maybe an older guy. And I like, the other thing I like doing, similar to the running back position is super flex, is I'm combing those waiver wires, man. I'm grabbing anywhere where there's questions. Like there's it's going to blank. Who's in Denver? Who's the QB2? I don't know if you guys know off the top of your hand. Anyways, just because I'm not that confident in a guy like Drew Lock, I'll go and pick up his backup in Superflex off waivers for free, or, at the end of a draft, things like that. Kyle Allen is another guy. Like, we don't know what's going to happen in a lot of these offenses. So similar to a backfield, when there's questions, I like to go cheap and get these guys, when no one else is maybe looking there. So that's another little strategy. think
Jeff
that's
Driscoll was the guy you're thinking of.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly who I was thinking about. Thank you very much. Look, he's not on a lot of rosters right now, unless you're in super flex and they're super deep. So that's, to me, an easy get, a guy you can get for free. And like we said, with all the weapons there, if he steps in, takes advantage, you've got yourself maybe a league winner in a super flex. I'm going to go to you first, Jordan. Who's a guy maybe that you're selling or avoiding fantasy-wise, just to start this conversation up?
Lamar Jackson. I just can't. So when you look at quarterbacks, typically what you'll see is the guy that finishes as the quarterback one, like we said before, it's a huge touchdown rate. And of all the stats, touchdown rate is one of, if not close to the most highly variant from year to year. So he had 9% touchdown rate last year. That's about double what you would expect from the NFL average. Again, you can be a little bit above and a little bit below that sort of historically. When you look at a guy, for example, like Rivers is just over 5% for his career, and you sort of know that's who he is because of that's who offenses have been, right? Because he has a long history of longevity, right? We sort of know who he is at this point in his career. With Lamar Jackson, what I expect you're going to see is big time touchdown regression, and that's not to say that he's going to be bad. It's just it's a lot of luck, and there's so much luck that goes on with it. I mean, Ryan Tannehill was another good example of this last year. Huge touchdown rates, and when you sort of come back down to earth, right? You look a lot more like a middle of the road starter, and that's not an insult, but the difference between quarterback 1 and quarterback 6 or quarterback 8, I mean that's about a win in fantasy. So over a 13 game season. So when you sort of think about that, like you're basically betting on him to repeat variance that is just historically something that does not happen. And when you look at the guys who have finished as quarterback 1, almost all of them have had big time regression the next year. And if you sort of take that and take Dak Prescott last year and basically flip flop their touchdown rates, I think it was something like Lamar Jackson outscored him by like 60 or 70 points or something like that. If you flip flop their touchdown rates, Dak Prescott outscores him by 200 points. Right. So when you just think of how much variance that is, I'm betting against that happening again. So he's a clear avoid player just because what he did last year, plus the rushing too. I mean, no one's ever gone back to back 1,000 yards for a quarterback. I think there's reason for that, and I have a hard time seeing that happening, his season happening again. And I'm just not going to pay that price.
There's never been a Lamar Jackson, though, to be fair. As far as
Mike Vick, though. I mean, right?
Okay, yeah, that was a okay.
I agree that Lamar Jackson's really good. The problem is that his price, you're paying for him to be historically good, and I just that has no precedent in terms of really. I mean, there's a whole list of Hall of Famers that we could sort of go down that have had that huge touchdown rate, finished as a quarterback 1, and then had a massive regression the next year. It's just that's kind of what happens because you need that, right? To finish as the quarterback 1 in a season takes a mammoth performance, right? There is luck involved with that, and that's not to say he didn't have a good year. It's just to say when you're betting on that going forward, it's a trap for me. And so that's really the avoid spot for me. And he needs to have that huge thing, especially with the lack of passing volume, right? I mean, 400 attempts last year? I mean, you need a huge level of touchdown rate, and I just don't expect it to happen.
So Jennifer, who's someone that maybe you're avoiding? I know, you talked about being more of a late round type of drafter. So obviously Lamar being where he's going, like in Dynasty Superflex, he's like top 22, top 25 piece. And I'm sure it's, I'd have to look, but I believe it's even higher with regards to redraft and best ball. So where are you at with someone that you're dodging this offseason as you build your rosters?
I am staying away from one Tom Brady this season. I find that his ADP is ridiculous. Like he's in the 6th round. It depends on obviously the site, but like redraft wise, he's in the 6th round on ESPN. He's in the 7th round in Yahoo. Like that's just way too expensive for what's going on there. I mean, he's 43. Yes, last year he didn't have the same weapons as he's going to have, and I'm aware of that. But he wasn't good. And he doesn't run. I know you just went on and on about Lamar, but I prefer running quarterbacks. Obviously you're going to add it's a huge element there. So I like the running quarterback, and Tom is the opposite of the running quarterback. I just think that I don't hate him in general this season. I would prefer him in like the 11th, 12th round, and that's just not where he is. So he's someone I'm just not I'm not going for. I'm still drafting his weapons at times when they're around, kind of, but like same thing with Gronk. I think he's too high as well. I've been avoiding him, and both of them might come back and bite me in the face, and they might have this crazy tandem of craziness this season. But both of their price is just too high based on their past. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah, those are two guys in Dynasty that I just bought a share of Gronk because it was a tight end premium. I really needed a tight end, and I sent like Madison. So to me, Madison is nothing. Whoa! Maybe that's a whole other discussion.
Whoa! I got a whole chapter named after him. Oh, easy. You're hurting me.
I'm attacking one of your guys.
Oh, that's funny.
But where I was going with that is just in general, like Gronk and Brady are two guys I am not invested in at all, like dynasty wise. And that's why in the fishbowl, I've got a stack of Godwin, Brady, and Gronk, just because I'm like, I go a little different than where I'm going. And I just figure, a nice little stack advantage there. But that's my extent of my investment on those guys.
I have very little. I have a little bit. I may have a Brady or two in best ball, and I'm at probably close to, I think I'm right at about 40 best ball leagues so far. So,
Nice.
As far as Brady, I may have two. And Gronk, I think maybe I've dropped him once.
Really
I don't
rich.
know.
With best ball though, if you've got a big enough portfolio, you end up having everybody, even the people you want to avoid.
Absolutely. For sure. Yeah, for sure.
Because you just, it's the price is right because he really drops in, this league or whatever, and you have a need there. And, sometimes things come together and you just say, well, I guess this is where I take Brady or whoever it happens to be. So,
yeah, other than there's definitely a few people that I will not take no matter what, but those aren't them.
Dan, that's a great point too, right? Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You got it.
I think what you said is you could put that on a fantasy football T-shirt, right? Which is you draft so many of these leagues. What ultimately happens is at some point the price is right on one of these guys. So even a player that you might avoid, you end up with, right? Like that's exactly how we should play. And even if you're playing in lesser leagues, like when those situations present themselves, that's critical at all positions, right? And so I think you hit a huge strategy point directly on the head in terms of anytime a player, we avoid players at cost, right? Lamar Jackson, for me, if he was quarterback 10, right, I'd be all over him, right? But it's all, and even though I think there's going to be regression, right, I would be all over him. Whereas it's all the cost. And I think that example is something that you hit perfectly.
Yeah, so it's just one of those things where you'll take anybody if it comes around to it, because if you are honest with yourself, we all make lots and lots of mistakes in analyzing players, and we are wrong. Well, except for Jen, of course. Their present company accepted. But anyway, I'm the bozo anyway that I get stuff wrong all the time, and just having a healthy respect for how often you can be wrong, I think is one of the best things that can happen to you as a fantasy player, because then you are willing to even though you don't want to say, well, you don't want to lose your entire focus and go without a compass at all and say, well, I might be wrong, so I'll just take anybody anywhere. But what it does is it kind of forces you to say, hey, this guy is dropping and I don't have any of him, and here's a good opportunity to get some a little bit cheaper than, what I've been seeing him at a lot of the time. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this guy here and, just kind of at least have a little bit of exposure to him. So again, that's, you're talking more portfolios there. If you're talking about, just like you've got a couple dynasty leagues or a couple redraft leagues and that's all you're doing, you should go out and take your favorite guys, because you're going to be a lot happier with yourself if you win with your guys and lose with your guys, rather than losing with somebody that somebody else recommended you don't really believe in. So, but as far as avoids, I'm going to go with Josh Allen.
Oh,
so
wow.
sorry. Yeah.
Right. Well, I've got some points here to talk about him in a little bit. So
all right, we'll go, definitely. Here's what I don't like about. I'm talking a little bit more in Dynasty here. That I'm a little bit more forgiving on Josh Allen in redraft or best ball, but in Dynasty, I just don't see him as being a good passer, and ultimately, I think that's what's going to cause some problems for him. I mean, you can, the running quarterback thing is great, and players can do that in their early years. And he's got a couple of years of it under his belt. And I expect things will probably continue just fine this year. But eventually, he's one of those quarterbacks who I wonder if Buffalo is going to tire of him in his lack of accuracy, whether it's downfield or short or whatever. I mean, he just doesn't really throw a very accurate ball. And he just, sometimes he throws a great ball, but other times he's just way off. That's something that eventually gets tiresome to an organization, and sometimes they don't want to invest in him. So I'll be looking to see now if Josh Allen goes out and gets that second contract from Buffalo, and they say, yep, we're putting our faith in Josh Allen. That's going to cause me to go back and change my opinion. And I will look at that a little bit more seriously. But if I own him in Dynasty, I'm looking at this year as a good opportunity to sell high. Everybody knows what he is, and people have been a little bit slow to climb on board, but this year it seems like everybody's climbing on board. So this is the year where if I own him, I want to kind of explore getting off for a good price.
You took my guy, but it's funny because I feel like this is going to be the conversation, and I was wanting to spark a conversation with Alan, because I went into this, this is where Dan and I think like way too much, because we don't usually tell each other the players we're going to talk about, and not Josh Allen was my guy as well coming into this. But so I had him like around 13. And again, I'm talking purely Dynasty, because that's the rankings I'm kind of working on right now. But I had him just outside as a QB1, like QB 13. But if you look at Buffalo, they increased their passing attempts from 18 to 19 by 2 whole attempts, which doesn't sound like much. But if you look at ranking, it moves them from like 28th to 21st in pass attempts. Allen is polarizing, as we're seeing tonight, right? But he was a QB8 in deep ball attempts. And he had, John Brown as his best receiver.
Diggs.
He didn't have Diggs there yet. Exactly.
I know, but he does now.
We all know, and these are the things that kind of surprised me when I was doing my research, and this is why I'm kind of bringing this up, piggybacking on Dan's, but expressing my, I guess, me being on the fence still with Allen, but I'm kind of leaning more and more towards Jennifer, and I've moved him up a bit because he was QB 14 in pass attempts last year, and again, that represents the 21st ranked and that move up. So the way I see it, you're looking at a guy they've added Diggs, they've added a bit to the running game, they got younger in the running game with Moss. There's a progression in this offense that you would expect just him. It's the third year for this offense as a whole, right? With Josh, this system and so on. And you would see naturally a progression there. And if you look at this guy's rushing stats, he's top 2 in everything, top 3 at worst with the actual rushing yardage, but he's top 2 in everything. So if you add all that together, and you look at, he finished last year? QB, oh man, I lost that. I think it was QB 10. He finished QB 10 as points per game last year, fantasy points per game. So that's with what I just talked about. So for me, it's like, unless it really goes south, I see a higher probability of him getting better. So for me, I moved him actually into the 11 spot. Again, it's not a huge move, but he's inside of my top 12.
Yeah, I like him. He's a guy I'm targeting. Obviously not, early, but I like him where he is. And you touched on a lot of the points, but I think that, Diggs is arguably the best route runner in the league. And now he's here. And I think, yes, he throws an erratic ball or two, but I think it doesn't matter. I think Diggs is going to catch him. And I think John Brown is great at separation. He's got a really good wide receiver duo. And then, granted, Dawson Knox is whatever he is, but I think that, like you said, they added Moss. And then you also have the fact that he could potentially have, 100 plus, rushing attempts himself this year. So I like him. I like him where he is. And he's definitely a guy I'm targeting. Now, granted, the hype has become kind of hype-ish. So if he starts to rise as we get closer to draft season, then, I may have to go off of him. But for right now, where he is, I like him.
I want to give a shout out to Mr. Bald is Beautiful, letting people know that Dan is the man, and our boy Sports Betting Man. He's in the league with us, isn't he, Dan? He's in the...
Yes. Bald is Beautiful. That's one Jack Hahn, who is a well-known high-stakes player and a supreme auction player. If you want to play auction, he's the guy who can give you a lesson. And then Lance is Sports Betting Man, and we are in the Hardway Dynasty with Lance.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, shout out to those guys for chiming in here. So yeah, I mean, again, Allen is Jordan. Did you give your thoughts on Allen yet? Where are you with Josh out in Buffalo?
Again, cost is everything in this world. And as a rookie, I mean, I spent 6 months leading up to that draft just ragging on Josh Allen, and then he became basically the quarterback 5 across all formats and rookie drafts. And I'm like, all right, I sort of have to be in, right? Like at that cost for a top 10 quarterback, I mean, you're getting him late second round in super flex rookie drafts, and then you're getting him in the 4th round of start ones. You have to be in at that cost, just based on just the hit rates of top 10 quarterbacks. Even if you don't think he's that good, you have to be in at that cost. So it's come full circle for me. I actually think I was looking at some. I've really studied him, and I covered him each week for Football Guys. I'll say a couple of things about them. Brian Daboll is a top 5 offensive coordinator in the league in terms of the position he puts Josh Allen in, consistently being progressive in terms of passing early, doing things that you should do for a rookie, young developing quarterback, and trusting him early, showing confidence in him, throwing when you should throw, when it's high efficiency to throw, doing all of those things. They do that very, very well. Cole Beasley helped out a ton last year, and you basically, by bringing in Diggs, you move John Brown and Cole Beasley into where they belong, which is, and I love John Brown. Like, John Brown is one of my favorite players in the league. He's just an absolute badass. And but he's better as a number 2. He's very good, right? He was actually an alpha 1 at points last year, but when you slot him into number 2, I think that's the much more natural place. You bring in Diggs, that fits a lot better. I think you're fielding a much better receiving core there, especially with some additional depth. But when you look at Josh Allen, right, the accuracy thing's the big thing, right, which is what everyone sort of talks about. But I think it's misunderstood. Josh Allen's not a good deep ball thrower, right? He has a strong arm, but he's not a good deep ball thrower. Similarly, he doesn't throw the ball. Like, if you look at behind the line of scrimmage or sort of right at the line of scrimmage, he's below average at that. But really, where from the 5 to 20 yard depth of target range, he's above average in terms of completion percentage. And that's really where the majority of your throws are going to come. So he's actually above the league curve there, which isn't something that people really, I think, give him credit for. And that's a notable improvement over 2018. So he took a big step forward last year in terms of those throws. And I think that's really notable. So you can always find bad throws from any quarterback, where they bounce them, and Cam Newton's like the king of that, right? Like, he would, bounce balls to guys and stuff, like at the line of scrimmage. Like, but when you sort of look at the whole, he has taken big steps. I'm not going to say he's the king of accuracy or anything like that, but I think the accuracy thing's overstated. And, I can't believe that I'm going to say this considering how far I've come on Josh Allen, but I think 40 touchdowns isn't like he has that level of upside. I'm not going to say that's a likely outcome, but he could run 10 to 12 in and put up high 20s or low 30s in terms of passing touchdowns in a good year and finish with 40 plus touchdowns. That would not surprise me.
He's going QB7 right now, FFPC. It's like super flex startups. So for me, that's where I'm on the fence. Is that's a little too high for me.
That's too rich.
Yeah, it's too rich. So again, like you said, Jordan, it's always about price, right? You get him in a good deal or somebody who wants to move him or something like that, then that changes the game. So it's always part of it.
I hope you guys are right about Josh Allen, because last night in the Draft Sharks Invitational, I took it's a super flex best ball, and I took Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Cam Newton as my 3 quarterbacks. So we are definitely counting on the running quarterbacks there. I am totally hosed myself at wide receiver, but I have strong running backs. I have strong quarterbacks and pretty good tight ends. So we'll see how it goes. But I definitely like Josh Allen's prospects this year as far as like fantasy production. And like I say, I want to see Buffalo make that investment in a second contract with him and see how that contract looks before I'm firmly buying in Dynasty. You know, like I say, right now I think everybody's buying into Josh Allen. So if you're looking to cash out, now is the time to cash out. I do have a Josh Allen share somewhere, and I'll be exploring cashing out, because obviously there's a lot of people out there who are interested in buying.
We're gonna do some OTC tonight, some on the clock. So I'm going to throw some names at you guys sporadically throughout this show. Jennifer, I'm going to go to you first, since you are Josh Allen's biggest fan right now.
Oh, no. I will tell you who Josh Allen's biggest fan is my coworker, TJ Hernandez. He is the biggest Josh Allen fan that there is in the universe right now.
So true. There you go. So if I'm basically going to talk about guys that I have as not avoids, but sells just because I find their prices are rich. So would you prefer Joe Burrow or Josh Allen? If you were going to build the dynasty, if you're starting a dynasty, do you have a preference between those two?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Okay. I know nothing about dynasty, but that's tough. I mean, I like Burrow. I like his situation in Cincinnati. Like I said, I know nothing about dynasty, so I will just stay with Allen.
Okay. I guess it wasn't fair for me to ask.
No, I mean, but you know what? But I can still give my opinion on Burrow, and I like him. I mean, he scares me a little bit this year, just based on, the weird circumstances that we're in, and just throwing him in there. But he has some really good weapons, and I think, he's obviously very talented.
So where do you put Burrow, I guess, versus Allen, if you're just looking for 2020?
Oh, I'm just looking for 2020. Allen is way up for me. I mean, this season, I have Allen kind of around quarterback 7. I mean, okay. Burrow to me is closer to the 15, 17 range.
Okay. That places it well. Jordan, what are your thoughts on those two dynasty wise, Burrow, or would you go Allen?
I have Josh Allen at quarterback 8. I've got Burrow at 14. So I would take Josh. If I'm forced to choose between the two of them, I would take Josh Allen. I do think there's other guys that I would rather have. I would pay less for and rather have than Josh Allen. So like Matthew and Dynasty, like Matthew Stafford or Goff. Yeah. I'd rather.
That wasn't the question, though. It's just those two.
Those two, it's easy. It's
That's how Jordan answers. That's why we like bringing him on.
Yeah.
Because he makes it.
But between the two of them, I would take Josh Allen, because a big part of it is we don't know with Burrow, and so maybe Burrow has higher upside, but in terms of in super flex startup drafts, like, you cannot miss early. And I'm not saying that Josh Allen's is a surefire hit, but we know, and sort of we what we've seen with him, we can sort of project his trajectory. There's a significantly wider range of outcomes on Joe Burrow, and that in a super flex startup draft, those things concern me. So if I had to pick between the two of them, I would take Josh Allen.
Dan, these guys are going. The reason I'm bringing these two names up is they're going back to back in FFPC Superflex startup. So Allen at QB7 and QB8 for Burrow. For me, that's a little rich for Burrow and for both of them. But if you had to pick between these two, what's your preference? And you're a guy that's kind of brought me back to when I'm choosing and it's close. Like Jordan talked about, I like the proven proven piece a little better, and that's usually where I lean. So is that where you lean between these two right now?
Yeah, I would, between those two, I would definitely lean Allen. I think probably a lot like Jordan. My actual answer would be I'm going to punt on both of them and grab somebody later. So
I'm rubbing off on you, Dan. I'm rubbing off on you.
You are definitely. No, but I with Burrow, I think this is kind of an expensive time to acquire him right now because everybody's been kind of, we've had Mahomes, we've just had Lamar Jackson, and Burrow comes along, we had a huge season from Baker Mayfield his rookie year, huge season from Kyler Murray his rookie year, so people are really looking at these rookies going, yeah, we expect, if he's in the starting lineup and was drafted 1 overall or, has got that hotness to him, he's going to be a great quarterback. And I just don't know if I see that this year with Cincinnati. I mean, we got a lot of new weapons. We've got the whole COVID situation, where it's tougher for a quarterback to get in sync with everybody. And he plays in a really tough division too. There's some rough defenses in there. I think Burrow will probably be cheaper, like a year from now than he is right now. So I'd rather just wait.
He also has a really crappy O-line. I was just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I don't dislike Burrow, but I will say in, like in best balls, I own almost no Burrow because once I'm down to the point where Burrow is within the range of outcomes, I'm tending to go even later, for like a Gardner Minshew or Teddy Bridgewater or somebody like that. Somebody who I know has got, they've been in the league and, so they have a little bit more seasoning. And, with Minshew, I think he might end up being kind of a little bit of a Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's got that DGAF as far as what his attitude is. And he's not going to be replaced. I mean, that's always a concern with Fitzpatrick. I mean, if you could count on Fitzpatrick being the quarterback for 16 games for fantasy, you would jump all over him because, I mean, he just, he's a little bit Jameis Winston, he's going to throw the pick sixes, which keep him throwing the ball even more, and keep him taking chances and everything else. And I think we might see that with Minshew a little bit this year. So, Minshew is somebody that I'm really high on, especially for this year. Dynasty, maybe not quite so much, though I think there's a decent chance that Minshew, maybe the talent evaluators just missed. I mean, sometimes they just miss. You get a Tom Brady or a Russell Wilson or a Drew Brees. Those guys did not go in the first round. Look at them now. So, Minshew could be the next in that line. I'm not saying you will be, but at least there's a chance based off of what we've seen in this first year.
So I'm going to throw a couple more names, maybe 3 or 4 other names, just guys that I consider going higher than I believe if I'm looking at Dynasty startup. So with regards to Tua, actually, I'm curious to get, Jennifer, your thoughts on Tua for 2020 before I let the boys answer with regards to the rookies' future versus these other guys going around them.
I'm not taking him anywhere, to be honest with you. Redraft or best ball. I've taken some Fitzpatrick, in the later part, but we just have no idea what's going to happen. You've got the hip, I don't know. It's something that I feel like there's always a better option for me. So I've been avoiding him altogether, and it might blow up in my face and he may come in week 3 and crush it. But I don't see that happening in this year with everything going on and him recovering from injury. It's why bother? I feel like they should rest him, or should get him to be full healthy. And, Fitzpatrick, we all know, can do his thing for at least a while. Fitzpatrick's not going to be a 16-game starter, but he'll get in there and he'll have his little magical, times where he'll put up 30 fantasy points for 2 weeks in a row and then whatever. But I'm just, in just regular redraft, I'm definitely not taking him. Nobody should take him in redraft. But for best ball, I know a lot of people are throwing darts at him in the end. And I'd rather, like you said, I'd rather take a Minshew. I'd rather take even, like Scott Fishbowl. I took Jalen Hurts, as over him just because why not?
He's going QB 11 right now, guys, dynasty-wise. Jordan and Dan, do either of you disagree that he might be a sell at this price, or do you like him at this price in Dino within?
I think he's a sell at that price. Yeah, I'm not super interested just because I'm concerned about the hip. I'm no doctor, but that hip concerns me long term as to I think his mobility is definitely a big part of his game and how he plays as a quarterback. Not even talking about his rushing ability, but just how he handles himself in the pocket. He needs to be able to move around freely and everything. And if that hip starts giving him problems, that would be.
I'm avoiding him in dynasty startup drafts just because, again, I think there's players later on that you can take that a lot more, right? I mean, Matthew Stafford's a good example of this, and depending on where you are, sort of timeline wise, Matt Ryan or Jared Goff or Aaron Rodgers, for example, all of those guys, Kirk Cousins, we know, right? They sort of check the box on being long-term starters, and with Tua, you have the hip, you have all those things, right? That's obviously a concern, but I think there's so much uncertainty with a young quarterback, and only of the guys drafted in the top 10, I think we overstate it a little bit in terms of how certain we are on them going forward. Of the guys in the top 10, about 40% of them hit twice in their career. Mm-hmm. And we sort of bank them in to be sure things. And I like Burrow, but you sort of have to come from that perspective. And we liked, I like Mayfield and all of these things. But when you sort of boil it down, only 40% of those guys hit twice. That's a low number. And so I think when you look at guys who have done it, it's a totally different spectrum that they're on. You're going from a base rates to a density, just to steal something from my book. But that's a big, that's a big distinction, particularly at quarterback. So at that price, I'm definitely fading him.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Jordan. Because we've really started acting like, these high first round quarterbacks are, they're guaranteed successes somehow. While we have seen a nice little, section 2 or 3 year, well, probably about 4 years here where that's been the case, that generally has not been the case. So you've either got to tell yourself, hey, the league is getting better at evaluating quarterbacks and they finally figured out what it is that, how quarterbacks succeed, and they figured out better ways to evaluate so that they can draft the right ones. Or the other option is it's just kind of a lucky string. I mean, it's like flipping a coin and getting 5 heads in a row. Maybe that's what's been going on. I don't know the answer to that yet. So that, like Jordan, I tend to be a little bit skeptical on the rookies. I would rather take somebody who, again, like Stafford or, somebody like that who has proven themselves. And, I know what I've got going forward. I mean, Stafford's 32 years old, 31, he's got years left. Dynasty wise, there's no reason to shy away from Stafford because of age. I mean, he's going to be a great starter, and he could be somewhere other than Detroit even in the next year, or he could have a different coaching staff in Detroit that's much more offensively oriented. So, for Stafford, I think you're looking at kind of almost worst case scenario right now, with a coaching staff that's not super good and, an offense that just, it's done pretty well, but, it should be able to do better than what it's done. And, still Stafford is performing, so give me a guy like that over somebody that I have no idea what they're going to be doing.
It's also worth noting in Superflex startup drafts that Joe Burrow and Tua are the 2 most expensive rookie quarterbacks in Superflex startup ADP since we have it going back to 2014. Wow. So again, Kyler Murray was in like the 50s last year. Yep. And these guys are going. I mean, Burrow's in the 30s and Tua's in the low to mid 40s. That's and I could sort of buy the argument historically, like when you look at the historical data that says, hey, listen, rookie quarterbacks are actually undervalued in Superflex startup drafts. Like that might have historically been true. It's definitely not now, right? So I think there's a distinction there that's important to point out. And when you're looking at the historical cost of these guys, it's very, very expensive.
That's another great stat, because I was kind of wondering that, noticing these guys are going really high, and the situations they're going, it's not like they're going to super ideal situations here. It's not like New England drafted them or anything, But I'm just going to name a couple other guys that I have that I feel are a little overpriced right now in Dynasty. And again, I'm going to go to you first, Jennifer, just because, again, my approach on this position is I want to know what these guys are going to do for me this year. I can maneuver this position for future just because of the depth. Two guys that I see right now going at a bit more of a cost than I'm willing to pay. So you've got Drew Lock and Sam Darnold are the two guys. I'm going to look up their ADPs. I had it, but I lost it. But I'll let you comment on them first. Jennifer, how do you feel about these guys as avoids or targets this year?
Well, I do live in Denver, so there's that. But, I was really into Sam Darnold last year. I really was. I was super excited about him. I had so many late cheap stacks of him, and he just absolutely burned me. Aside from the mono and it's just, yeah, he burned me pretty badly. But I do, I like him and Herndon. I think they have a good, they showed they have good chemistry. I think they have a bright future together. The rest of that offense is a mess. Adam Gase is a mess. I'm always going to go for, the better situation. So I'm going to go Lock. I mean, granted, we saw 4 games from Lock, so it's a pretty small sample size, but I really liked what I saw from him. And he has, an insane amount of weapons now around him. I mean, they're all young, but I think they all have potential. And the pass catchers, and you've got, Gordon, Lindsey. I think it's exciting. So I think between the two, I'm going Lock all day.
Jordan, what are your thoughts dynasty-wise with these two guys? So just to let you know where they're going FFPC Superflex. Lock is going at QB 17 and Darnold is going at QB 20.
Before you talk, Jordan, I will say neither of them for redraft. I wouldn't draft either of them for redraft. But in best ball, I'd go Lock. Because there's no reason outside of the, QB 17, you shouldn't be drafting in redraft anyway.
Right.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. I'll say this. I think they're both on very dangerous tracks. So when you look at Darnold, for example, in his situation, right, entering year 3 without a top 12 finish, 47% of quarterbacks in that situation that are top 10 picks hit for a future top 12 season. That number drops to 11% if you miss this year. So him and Baker Mayfield, it's do or die time, right? Like you've got to, right? This is it. Same with Drew Lock, right? When you look at the average starts of a second round quarterback drafted in the second round of the NFL draft, on average, the guys that don't hit for a top 12 season start 21 games. Drew Lock started 5 last year. 16 this year would be the number, right? So it's again, like it's not for long. And so these guys are really on short timelines for me, at least. So if I was going to go, I guess if I had to pick one, I'd pick Darnold. But I would say if I was going to sort of go this younger quarterback route, give me Daniel Jones, because at least he's more insulated in terms of he has this year plus next year at least would be sort of what my math would be there.
Dan, do you agree these two are maybe a bit overpriced? And what are your thoughts on them going into this year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think with with Darnold, he hasn't really gotten a fair shake yet. The guy has been pretty cursed as far as like his his coaching and everything else. He had a defensive-minded coach his first year. Their offense was just terrible, and then it's been Gase since then. Then he had to out with mono. He's a young quarterback. I mean, he's still super young. I mean, I guess with Darnold, he wouldn't surprise me either way that he goes. With Locke, I guess I'm a little bit less bullish. I love the weapons that he has, but I'm just not sure that he's got what it takes. I didn't like him as much coming out of college as Darnold, for whatever that's worth. But, for right now with Locke, at least, it's still worth something. I'm still waiting what my evaluation coming out of college was pretty heavily, since he's only started, 5 games. So, whereas with Darnold, now we're starting to have to, really switch over and think about what he's done as a pro and forget about what he did in college and, weight things that way. So neither one has a super bright outlook. I guess I would shade Darnold, but like Jen, I would not take either one in redraft. I will take them as late best ball options. If I'm running 3 quarterbacks, they would be a third quarterback. Other than that, not really interested. Dynasty wise, for a super flex or something, they'd be serviceable, but I'd be looking to upgrade.
Yeah. Same. I mean, they're not guys I'm targeting, and especially at their price, I've got them back to back. Drew Lock slightly ahead, just the situation definitely better there, like Jen mentioned, and Gase is just someone I avoid all around in fantasy, and it's proven well over the past few years. So we talked about it tonight. I'm using their ADP, myffpc.com. If you guys are listening, you're not already on the site playing, it is the best fantasy site to play fantasy, whether you're looking at Dynasty, Best Ball, Redraft. They've got 2 $500,000 tournaments on there right now that you can go on right now and draft. Schedule your draft. You can do it live in Vegas even if you want in September, or you can do it from the comfort of your own home. And they've got best balls 35 all the way to 1250 buy-in. So for sure there's some range, somewhere in that range where you feel comfortable playing, and their best balls are awesome, man. 28 deep. They've got slimmer ones, 20, but I'm still loving the 28 deep. You can go super flex, 1 QB, and everything's tight end premium. Dan, we got quarter milli Billies coming up, man. We got to schedule our draft for the football guys.
Yeah.
We've got our voucher. Thank you, Alex. But we got to get that draft scheduled. Then we want to start popping those quarter milli Billy episodes soon for our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been really pausing pretty hard on drafting until we get past the COVID opt-out date. I think that's like we talked about earlier. I think, tomorrow.
That's right.
We're all kind of waiting on pins and needles because I will be surprised if a couple big names don't drop tomorrow. I think it's likely that the bigger names, the teams are still trying to persuade them to not opt out. So there's kind of a dialogue going on there, maybe. So it doesn't surprise me that it's been a little bit more small fish to start with, but I think some big fish might be coming tomorrow. So we'll see if I'm right.
Yeah, that's right. Jennifer reminded us that's a huge date tomorrow. Right? It's going to be tomorrow's my birthday too, so little news. I don't mind. Thanks, guys. I'm old, so it's not like I celebrate or anything. But I'm going golfing. That's the extent of it.
Good for you.
But no, just to say that'll create some nice action. I'm thinking of Nate right now. Yep. Dan just by his computer with his ticker on, just waiting to send out those offers. But as you guys can see, our ticker, myffpc.com, go check it out. And if you're not on the site already, we've got an exclusive bonus you can get. Just send me, I was saying DM me, but my DMs are a little bananas, so it's really hard for me to track them there. So just send an email to goatdistrict@gmail.com, and I'll hook you up with a link that you can register through, and you'll get an exclusive sign-up bonus, which is literally free money that you'll get to play on the site once you register with them. So go check out myffpc.com for the best site. Guys, we went through, we went through pretty deep with regards to the sells and the avoids. Before we continue, are either of you on a time crunch at all? Do we have So actually, I'm going to go back to you, Jennifer. Why don't you start this off? Looking on the other side of the ball, I started with, I like to start with the bad news first and get the good news second. So who are some guys that you're targeting right now at the quarterback position when you're doing these redrafts and these best balls?
Well, we've already covered pretty much the two that I had written down. One was Josh Allen and the other is Matt Stafford. So we kind of covered them both. Stafford, you guys talked about it a little bit, but I mean, last year, he was QB6 before he got, before he hurt his back. I think he had like 20.8 fantasy points a game at that point. I love him, and everyone kind of he's perennially, I can't even speak, but yeah, he's always undervalued every year. And I think he's a great value this year, and I think he's got, a lot of really good weapons. So he's another guy I'm definitely targeting in that kind of later-ish range. Let's see who else. I like Cam. I like Wentz. But those are the two that I'm really targeting in that range. But there's, like Jordan had said, I mean, I'll take Kirk. I mean, there's plenty of guys I'll take down there. Once you get kind of past that initial couple tiers where there are, and their projected fantasy points are really similar. So you just kind of have to see, okay, as far as cheap stacks and all, the roster construction and your strategy comes into play there. But a lot of them I feel like are interchangeable in that, in that mid to late tier. So yeah.
That's my first buy on when I'm looking at my rankings. The first green stripe that I see is right across Stafford's name. So I love that call. He's kind of the guy where if I miss him in a draft, I'm a little upset because I feel like if you get him as your first QB, you've built up enough nice pieces ahead of him. And if you pair him up nicely, I mean, like you said, when he was on last year, he was on. He was a top quarterback. Guys, anything to add with regards to Stafford? I know he's kind of becoming a favorite when it comes to buys at the quarterback position. But why don't you guys comment on two guys that Jennifer mentioned? Dan, I'll go to you first. Cam Newton is a guy that I'm loving. I feel like I'm a little higher on him, maybe Jennifer as well, than the average person. What are your thoughts on Cam, and what are your thoughts on Stafford? I know you like Stafford, and I think our listeners know that you like him, but I'm more curious to know with regards to Newton.
Yeah, so Newton in particular in that Draft Sharks draft last night. The reason why I grabbed him is because we're coming back in the sixth round, and he was still on the board, and I hadn't really planned to go quarterback there, but the value was just so extreme. And this is again it's a 2-quarter or a super flex league. And what I like about Cam is just the fact that he's getting put into a situation in New England where they really are known for tailoring, their offense or their defense or whatever around the players that they have. And that's fantastic for Newton. I mean, Newton is one of those quarterbacks that really thrives when he's in a system that fits him well. But if you try to put him into a system that doesn't fit, it's going to be a lot tougher for him. You have to hope that he's healthy. There is a little bit of a gamble on that, but it certainly all signs point towards him being healthy. And if he's got his wheels going, and his feet are solid, and his shoulder is solid, I think he's going to be easily a top 6 quarterback. Just with Belichick making use of him and maximizing his strengths, I'd say easily a top 6, and he could just as easily be top 3. So I love the upside there. And if you're talking about redraft or something like that, I mean, he's somebody who's great because he's not super expensive. He's not in that the top 2 tiers, but I think he's going to perform like somebody who gets drafted in those top 2 tiers. So I love the value there. What do you guys think?
Jordan, what do you think? I feel like Newton is starting to creep up. I mean, even seeing this right now as on this FFPC startup, he's going as the QB 13, I believe. QB 15. I was actually surprised to see that because I've got a lot of shares from earlier in the offseason. I feel like that's where it was, value if you got him early in the season, whether it's best balls or even in trades or whatever it was. I know in our Super Goat, he's been sitting on my bench. People have been trying to get him for cheap, and I was holding, man. I was thinking it's got to be New England, but you get lucky in those situations. But what are your thoughts on Newton or Stafford or anyone you want to throw out there in this conversation, Jordan?
Well, I love Stafford. So I'm a huge Stafford fan. Just a huge fan of Matthew Stafford. So I could go on and on. You guys hit it on the head. I'm not going to dispute anything you said. I could talk for hours on Matthew Stafford. So just stay healthy, my man. Stay healthy. I was worried about an opt-out with him because of, there was that he actually, I think it's an interesting thing just from a big picture perspective. He was looks like he tested, he was a false positive for COVID. So that's obviously not ideal, but that's something we're gonna have to deal with this year. I was worried about the opt-out because of his wife's cancer and all that stuff. He could be on the early retirement track, just like I worry about that from him.
He also just had another baby, right? And
I think so. Yeah. So he, I think they have like 3 kids, and she recovered from, I thought it was brain.
She had a brain.
Something with her brain. So obviously those things are a concern. But it looks like he's going to play. I haven't seen anything to suggest otherwise. So that's really my only concern with him. If he can stay upright, I have any plays. I think the ceiling's very high. Cam's that offense isn't particularly good, which is a little bit my concern. What are we going to get out of N'Keal Harry after pretty much a lost year? I mean, does Julian Edelman fit him? I mean, there's virtually, you have 2 rookies at tight end. You've got James White, I guess. I look around and I'm not super confident. I guess I will say I think some of the stuff they had to do last year to just, let their defense win them games and score touchdowns for them because they really struggled at times, I think is not going to be the case this year. They got hit pretty hard on the defensive side by some opt-outs. So I think that they might be forced into some more aggressive offense. So I think it'll be interesting. I think from a volume perspective, I think Newton, and he has a lot of, they don't have really an incentive to protect him, and he's got a lot of incentive to be him in his prime. So just money wise. So I think that's a good alignment, a good matchup there. But I think there's a lot of variance potential there, right? He could be a top 6 guy. But again, it's been a while since we've seen that from him. So he's a really interesting one. I think at the price, I think it's a reasonable risk to take.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good way to place it based on value. So if I come back to you, Jordan, is there someone you want to add that we haven't, even if we talked about him, maybe we just touched and we haven't gone deep enough, but is there someone that you're, that you like right now at their price in Dynasty, or even in, like we're talking redraft or best ball?
At their price, I love Phillip Rivers. And he basically, and I have him in a couple of super flex leagues where he's basically my quarterback 2 or my quarterback 3. And at the end of last season, I was like, man, I don't love the feel of that. But as I sort of looked back at it, the narrative on him was, he big time decline, all these things. What happened last year was he threw interceptions, and I think he forced balls when it was sort of necessary. He basically did the anti Aaron Rodgers, which is Aaron Rodgers. The complaint on him is he won't make throws, risky throws, even when they're down. Like Rivers has no conscience about throwing balls into tight windows when he's sort of trying to force a comeback. So I think that's a little bit of what happened, and it was negative touchdown regression. So we sort of know what he is historically. He was right on the number for his career yards per attempt. I don't really think there was a decline last year. I just think things went poorly. And those are two vastly different things. I think that offense could be pretty interesting. They have a good offensive line. They add Jonathan Taylor, and who's actually on a per route run basis in college was very, very good for receiving. That's something that's not really talked about. Like twice as many yards per route run than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Maybe they use him a little bit more. It wasn't something that Wisconsin really did. So I am, I'm pretty confident that he can produce a top 12 season this year in terms of Rivers, just get a little bit more regression in terms of back to normal touchdown rate. He was a top, I think he finished quarterback 15, 16 last year. I could see that going up based on the weapons that he has and just him performing at a normal touchdown rate.
I love Rivers too. I do. And I also like Doyle with him. Mm-hmm. Everybody's sleeping on Doyle, and I think they're going to be a great duo for super cheap, both of them. And I like Pittman as well. I forgot about Rivers in that conversation, but I do like him a lot.
Man, Jen knows how to make me smile, and then JD smile. Right there. Everybody knows I'm a Doyle guy. And,
you are. See, I didn't know that.
Yeah. JD, he's definitely a Pittman guy. So
I didn't know that about either of you.
Yeah, there you go. But I should be more in on Rivers just because I've been so in on all of his weapons. I love Paris Campbell at price. I love even T.Y. Hilton at price is great. Doyle at price is fantastic. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is totally underrated right now. He's starting to slip into the 4th, 5th rounds in some drafts in the redraft area. And, really, I think anytime, once you get into the 3rd round, I'm ready to draft Jonathan Taylor. I think the cream's going to rise to the top there. You don't worry about the Marlon Macks and the Nyheim Hines and guys like that. When you have a guy like Taylor, if the coaching staff has any intelligence whatsoever, they're going to quickly see, this is the guy who can get us where we need to go. So, just buy Taylor and, the other guys are just handcuffs.
Yeah, I was just saying, I was in the Dynasty draft room with our boy Matt Price last night talking Colts because they're my team. So we were talking about all these guys, and Rivers is a guy that we focused in on. I mean, he's definitely we were talking like weapons wise. I would say that now they've kind of evened it out with the pieces they've added. I think Taylor's going to be a beast. You're looking at a team that was 4th in the NFL last year in rush attempts, and they're bringing in this guy behind the probably the best offensive line in this league. And that's what a guy like Rivers wants, right? Is just give him a bit of time to throw the ball. And I think he's going to surprise. And I love that call because he's going QB 34 right now on FFPC, Superflex Dynasty startups. He's going after guys like, Jalen Hurts, Nick Foles, like Jameis Winston. Like, I get the age thing, but you got to remember what you're using these guys for, and it actually surprised me because FFPC is a shallower build usually in rosters, and there are cutoffs and so on. So I'm surprised that these guys that are maybe not even in a starting role right now are going ahead of our boy Old Man Rivers.
Yeah, I'm definitely not taking Foles or Trubisky. I'm completely staying away from that mess.
Disaster over there.
Not even as my QB3 in best ball. I'm still not doing it. There's just better options,
My deal with those guys is if I have one of them, I'm going to the other owner and I'm saying, hey, you want the pair? You send it to you for a third or whatever it is they want to give me. That's kind of what I've been doing. So anyone else that we haven't talked about yet that you guys want to bring up? You know what? I'll bring up a name. I kind of like Jimmy G ahead of where he's going. I know now with the Debo news, it's definitely gonna hit his value, but I feel like this guy is a little undervalued in the sense that he's going QB 21 right now in startups. But I mean, I'll take Drew Lock. I mean, I'll take him over Drew Lock. I'll even take him over Goff. And then you run into those older guys that'll give you that higher production when you're looking at Dynasty. But I actually really like Jimmy G. I think he's undervalued where he's going, and I think that people are reading a lot into what this offense did last year, whether it was game script, what they saw in the playoffs or the Super Bowl, how the team leaned on the running game and so on. And I'm not saying they're not going to do that this year, but I do think they're going to throw the ball a bit more. And they've added Ayuk, they've added weapons. So I do think that this offense is going to evolve, and I think Jimmy G will become a more productive fantasy producer moving forward. Do you guys agree, disagree? Anything, Jordan? No?
I'm fine with him as a QB2. He's definitely not a QB1 for me. He's probably in the 17, 18, 19, 20 range, something like that.
In that range.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely taking Goff over him. I'm not that bullish on Garoppolo. I think that I don't roster him anywhere, and I just think that the upside's pretty low. Right? There's not I have a lot of questions about him, and when you sort of look at what they did. In the playoffs with him last year, I think San Francisco has questions about him too. And so like when you compare him to, him to Goff, for example, I mean, the Rams were 3rd in the league in passing attempts last year, right? So just from a volume perspective, I think and they had a horrible touchdown rate, right? So I think all of those things point to, I think Goff could have a pretty big season. That wouldn't surprise me. I'm just not sure I see anything really above like quarterback 15 out of Garoppolo. And we've seen that, well above that for Jared Goff. So that's really my thing with Garoppolo is I don't think there's a lot of upside with the pick, and you can do other things at that cost. And I think you have a lot more upside.
I guess one of the reasons I see him maybe a bit more value of where he's going is just look at, last year was the first full season you saw from this guy. Like we got to remember, this guy wasn't a starter in the NFL or on the field till just recently. So for me, just that natural progression in the offense, the trust from the coach. Yeah, I agree with you. In the playoffs and, in certain games, they definitely did not trust in Garoppolo. I just think that maybe the opportunities and the trust builds or grows as he grows with this offense. Because last year was still a little new. Yeah,
I mean, I give Kyle Shanahan a ton of credit because he got to the Super Bowl with starting the second best quarterback on his team. So I think that's a notable accomplishment.
Had to get the air horns in there.
Oh, definitely on that one.
All right. I know I'm on an island with Jimmy G. Trust me, I wasn't expecting cheerleaders behind me on that one. I know I'm definitely he's definitely a QB2 for me, but for me, he's more. I prefer him in the higher end of the QB2s, I guess, when I'm looking dynasty wise. So I'm going to do quick on the clock just because we got a couple questions. Jennifer, I'll go to you first. Fantasy pollster at FF Poll Tsunami. He's on the clock. Redraft question. He's asking in redraft, which running back would you prefer in 2020? So Zach Moss, Jordan Howard, Tevin Coleman, or Daryl Henderson?
What were the first? You said Zach Moss, Daryl Henderson, Jordan Howard. Those
Tevin
three?
Coleman.
Coleman. Okay, let's see. I'm a Breida gal, so I'm not love. I mean, Howard's okay. I guess, I think I'd go Moss out of those four. I like the potential there in Buffalo. I like Singletary, but I think Moss is definitely going to have a role. And I think that Coleman, I don't know. It's something about it. I don't love him, especially this season with COVID. I know he has the sickle thing, and that could be an option, or it could be a hindrance, I guess. And like I said, I like Breida. Oh, Henderson. I'm just staying away from that entire backfield, to be honest with you. So I have zero Henderson. There's way too much going on there for me to put my stake in any of them.
Jordan, who do you like out of these four?
I'm a big fan of Coleman as a one injury away guy, just because the offense is really good, and that's kind of what I think you're looking for in this range. I think there's a chance that Henderson starts. I think Akers is far the superior player. I would throw a shout out to a player not named that I suspect is possibly available, and that'd be Latavius Murray.
I love Latavius Murray.
Consistent.
But that wasn't a choice.
It wasn't a choice. I'm just adding it on the off chance that he's available. He would be my guy.
Jordan's nickname is going to become none of the above.
Yeah,
right?
off script. Yeah.
I mean, if we're throwing stuff out there, I like Boston Scott there too. But that wasn't a choice.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I love that deep. Those deep RB guys, right? Dan, which one do you like out of these four? I know which way you're going. It's probably the same as the poll, but I'll let you.
Well, I didn't see the poll, so I'm going Jordan Howard there. I know, I love Breida too. I have no problem drafting either one of them. I think either one could succeed massively. I think, they could have a productive timeshare. I think Miami could be a better team than we expect. But one thing I like about Howard is he's gotten it done in this league. I mean, I don't understand why Chicago got rid of him just to bring in David Montgomery, who's like Jordan Howard, but worse, so, give me Jordan Howard on a team that will use him. I'm happy with that. I think Zach Moss is the close second for me. And I love a lot of the things that Moss brings. But, again, we're talking about a rookie who we don't know anything about. So I'm going to favor the more experienced player there a little bit. But really, I mean, you can see the path to Moss being the primary back in Buffalo. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying that's going to happen this year, but I think it's within the range of outcomes. Singletary is not that big. He's not that fast. He's an okay pass catcher. He's not that great around the goal line. I mean, what he is he's electric between the 20s. Zach Moss is not electric between the 20s, but he definitely can, he's good at the goal line. He's got the extra size. He's not super fast, but he can also catch passes and do so, at I think a better level than what Singletary can probably do. Singletary was not a great pass receiver last year, as far as yards per route run. So I'll take Moss there if I can't get Howard.
Yeah, so Fantasyland agrees 55%, 56% actually to Howard, and then Zach Moss in a close second. You guys covered pretty much everything, but these guys are all similar to me except for Henderson. He's not someone to necessarily grab, so I'd probably sprinkle shares of, all three of these guys in best ball and have an even share. I'm not really leaning any way more than the other because I think they all have their opportunities. Jennifer, we appreciate you guys hanging out a bit longer. I've got two things before we close this out. So the first thing is I want to know selfishly, I'm starting to do rankings and I'm going to be dropping articles here and there with DHH. So I want to know what's your quick tip as someone who's going to be starting to write articles, like choosing topics or any kind of quick tip you have for me in that sense. with regards to your articles, you're covering a lot of COVID material right now as a topic on 4for4, or you've got a lot of other great articles on there, but COVID is something I'm noticing that you're on top of. So you've got two things that I noticed: the tool, the tracker, and your articles. So you just actually released or dropped an article yesterday, I believe, with regards to COVID. So talk to us about your role with COVID at 4for4, what you're doing right now, and kind of how Fantasyland can benefit by going on and subscribing to the site and following your material on the topic.
Yeah, as far as your first question goes, honestly, I would just try to think a little outside the box. A lot of content out there, and a lot of it is the same. A lot of it is, 5 sleepers, or I would just kind of try to at least come up with something. Obviously you play fantasy, right? So think about things that you would want to read, things that are not the norm, things that, are beyond the basic, rankings, or, things like that. So that's kind of where I'd go there. As far as COVID goes, yes, I was tasked with the being the COVID officer at 4for4, which was interesting. But no, I think there's a lot of people out there, whether you're a league commissioner, whether you're just a player, there's a lot going on, So I think there's, in this article, I wrote basically the COVID manual, where from a perspective of a commissioner, things that you need to look at, whether you need to change the format, whether you need to go straight up rotisserie, whether you need to do double headers, whatever it is, because we may have a shortened season. We may have they may just all of a sudden there be no season after. So you've got the main thing with commissioners and leagues is you have to hammer that stuff out, especially when there's money involved, which obviously, most of us there is. So, you have to make sure that it's very clear what happens if the season is week 6, or what happens if there's a break, or, there's that kind of thing, whether you're going to add, COVID IR spots, whether you're going to add a deeper bench, whether you're going to, push your draft to the very last minute just to make sure people don't test positive and all that. That's kind of from a commissioner perspective. And obviously from a fantasy perspective, you need to kind of look at drafting a little differently, just for redraft purposes, where, you want to handcuff, because we all know that we have no idea. Like, I play fantasy baseball right now, and I have, I believe, 4 guys on my roster right now have COVID. So it's, we don't know. All of a sudden, out of your 16-team roster, 7 of your guys could all of a sudden have COVID at the same time and have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. So you have to kind of try to. Obviously, you're not going to, curtail your entire draft towards COVID, but you've got to at least keep it in mind when drafting redraft. So that's kind of the stuff in the manual, and all of that. By the way, the manual and the COVID tracker are both free on 4for4.com. So if you don't have a subscription, those are actually free articles for right now. But we also would love for you to subscribe. But yeah, so, 4for4, I am the senior writer, senior editor. So I'm doing a bunch of stuff. In season, I do kicker streaming, which, I'm a huge kicker proponent. There's like 3 of us out there. I will talk about it all day, every day. I love kickers. So I do a kicker streaming article. Oh, Dan, you're a kicker guy. You know what? It's so funny. People hate them, and people just take one and then forget about it. And you're missing out on 10 to 12 point swing every week. People are but it's true. It's people they write it off,
or they complain about the variance, and then they sit there and go, let's have a wide receiver 3 and 2 flexes. That's like the guys you're starting in those positions, the variance on them is so much higher than on kicker. Come on. And if you learn to do kicker properly and you stream them every week, you're getting, you like I said, you got a 10 to 12 point swing and people, all of my home leagues, they're always like, how do you know? And I'm like, well, pay attention, because I stream defenses and kickers every week. So anyway, I do that. And then I also do a droppable article every week during the season. It's called the Dead Weight Report, players to drop each week, and a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, you can find me at 4for4. That is where I live.
Yeah, go check out Jennifer and her work. I know Jennifer, just going back to me kind of recently joining, one of the reasons is I just kept hearing from, trustworthy sources that, like I always say, my weakest part of this game, I'll build the rosters, trades, all that stuff. It's the weekly starters, when you've got those big decisions. And over, I keep hearing that 4for4 is very strong with regards to helping with start sits. So that's one of the reasons that I joined the site.
Yeah, our ranker, John Paulson, is ridiculously accurate. And I mean, he really is. His rankings, his rankings are ridiculous. I mean, I use them. It's not like, he's yeah.
I check him out every week. Absolutely. And I love the adjusted fantasy points against.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fantastic thing. I used to do that on my own. And I mean, it's like unbelievably hard to calculate and do it right. And then when I found out that 4 for 4 was doing it and I could just relax and enjoy it.
You can click and look at it. Yeah, it's nice.
Oh man, it's just fantastic. Yes.
Awesome.
So yeah, if you're not familiar with it, what it does is it takes a look at the strength of the players that defenses have been playing against. Like if a team continually is playing a string of elite tight ends, they might look terrible against a tight end, but in reality, they're actually pretty average or maybe even kind of good against the tight end, but they look a lot worse just because of who they're playing. Or alternately, if they're not playing anybody any good at tight end, they might look like a real shutdown unit, but then a good tight end might be able to come along and destroy them. So, that's going to find a lot of those little things, which is why I love it for in-season decisions. I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic. I'm gonna look at the player first, but when I'm having a tough time making a decision between two players, that adjusted fantasy points against absolutely is fantastic. Along with, there's just so much stuff on the 4 for 4 site. I mean, you every time I go on there, I find something I'm like, oh, I didn't know these guys were doing that. So it's
awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and we've got a bunch of new writers this year as well. So yeah.
Yeah,
awesome.
Solid stuff over there at 4 for 4. Jennifer Eakins and I love your handle, by the way, at the Monday Mommy. It's like so
Thanks.
perfect.
Yeah, it was actually it started. Yeah, it was a blog that I had before I even got into this industry. I was in real football for a long time before I switched to fake football.
Nice. In what aspect?
I covered the Broncos for a while for Bleacher Report, and I did a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, I was in the real football world for a while, and then I kind of towed the line between real and fantasy, and finally I just took the plunge, and it's so much better. But like the thought, every training camp, like this year starting up, I'm like, God, I'm so happy I don't have to go cover that right now. Fantasy is so much more fun than like covering, the training camp battles between the two right guards. It's like, it's just, yeah, it's
that's
not
hilarious. That's
not
awesome.
as fun.
That's awesome. But hey, man, that's all insight that you bring, right? So that's awesome. We appreciate all the goodness that you bring to Fantasyland and all the goodness you brought tonight. And we appreciate the time you took. So Jennifer, again, thank you. So Jordan, as my foot is in my mouth, you're over there dropping some goodness with the football guys, and Dan and I are a big fan of their tournament over there on FFPC. I'm a big fan of their material as well. Why don't you share what you're doing over there? I know you're doing the Dynasty podcast and anything else, or any other goodness you got, and let's not forget the book.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for kicking it over to me so I can put my foot in my mouth. So you picked the right person to kick it to. Yeah. So we're doing the Chad Parsons and I are doing the Dynasty show. I think we're 15, 16 episodes in. So we've survived. We had a barn burner this week, so that should be dropping. It's out on YouTube. It should be dropping tomorrow in the podcast feed. So we spent a lot of time talking about how we should think about guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But yeah, we're doing a whole series on we call it a campfire series, where basically we just kick around a topic, and it's just basically stream of thought on a different topic each day. So we've done those for there's a whole schedule, one a day, basically all the way through the end of training camp. So that's a lot of fun. Doing that's a lot of fun. So doing all those things. And then, you can find the book analyticsatdynasty.com/shop. And you can find, I'm still doing the podcast a day over at Patreon. My Patreon channel is patreon.com/analyticsatdynasty. I think I got to go back and count, but since COVID, I think I've probably done, there was 2 separate stretches of a podcast a day for like 2 months. So we're probably approaching like 150 podcasts since like the middle of March. So it's been quite the year. Wow.
That is a lot. Good stuff.
Yeah, and definitely check out Jordan's books, The Analytics of Dynasty.
Yes.
Those are fantastic books. I mean, whether you're a Dynasty veteran or somebody who's new, you're going to find things that are going to help you out. I love the way that he approaches subject matter and how he goes about analyzing what you need to be doing, both in your startup drafts and in your rookie drafts, and just kind of how to play the whole game. And there's a lot of things in there where I'm like, these are things that I do, but I'm not sure if they're right or not. And I think they probably are, but I can't really, I haven't really dug into it enough. And then Jordan he digs into it, he lays it out, and you're like, it's crystal clear now. And that's, if for nothing else, if you're pretty experienced in Dynasty, just looking at how Jordan approaches things, he definitely opened my eyes on a few things, but, also just kind of gave me that peace of mind that, this, there's actually, something behind the way that I'm doing things, and I am doing them right. So it's a great read, both of the books actually, so make sure you check them out. They're well worth it.
He's the overhyped sleeper, no E on the end, Dan Williamson, the man, as one of our watchers, I guess you call them, listeners, watchers, viewers. I guess it's viewers, right? Jennifer, yeah. I'm just, my English is just broken all over the place. So don't take it personally, please. No, we appreciate anyone watching, listening, for tuning in. We talk about the 5-star reviews, but it's about the feedback. We appreciate all the goodness you guys have sent our way, but just keep sending us some feedback. If you're on the Instagram, check out Go District FF. We got some fantasy football goodness on there as well. Tune in. If you're listening right now and you haven't had a chance to check it out, we are on YouTube at Goat District. You can watch the show on the weekly, and we'll be dropping other goodness on there as well. As usual, hashtag always be trading. Be safe, be happy, and we'll check you all later.
Go District, the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be trading. And I always be trading. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.